In today's session, we'll see how to create the user first. Okay, we'll talk about the user creation. After completing the user creation, we'll discuss about FSM, and if time permits, we'll see how to create implementation project and other relevant setups. In today's session, we'll create the user. Create user. We'll go and create one user. Let's take the name as say Intel. When you get instance access, we will provide you one username. With the same user, you can log into the instance, follow the same process which we are going to follow now to create the new user. Okay, you'll get one user and you get instance access. With the same, you don't practice with that user. With the same user, you can log in and you can create your own user. For now, I'm going to use the user called as ERPTREE. I will log into the instance with this user, and from that user I'll create the new user called as Intel. After creating the user, we have to assign the two roles. Those are application implementation consultant role. The other role is IT security manager. IT security manager role. These two roles we have to assign to the user. We'll go and see that. Okay, so now we'll go and create the user called as Intel, and we'll assign these two roles to that user so that this user will have access to FSM because of application implementation consultant role, and with the help of IT security manager, this user can have access to security console. The same we discussed in the last session. Right? We'll go and see that. Go to instance. This is a cloud instance. Now I'm going to log into this instance with a user called as ERPTREE. Sign in. And this user got access to these two roles. Okay, this ERPTREE user, already we assigned the role called as application implementation consultant as well as IT security manager. So since IT security manager role is assigned to ERPTREE user, from ERPTREE user you get access to security console. If you assign the IT security manager role to any user, will be able to have access to security console. From security console you can create the new user. Yeah. Now we'll create the new user from ERPTREE user. To create the user, click on the navigator. Here you could see the bar icon. Click on these bars. It will open the navigator. Here go to tools. Okay, go to tools. Seems to not assign this IT security manager. Right, I will log into the different user. Fine. So go to, just click on navigator. Click on navigator. Within this navigator, you can go to section called as tools. Expand the tools. Under tools, you can find one task called as security console. Okay, if you want to create the user that we can create from the security console, click on security console. Click on security console. Now select users. Select users. From this page, we can create the new users. To create the user, click on add user account. You want to create a user called as Intel. Okay, you can provide the person first name, last name. Here I am giving as Intel only. The same last name system is defaulting as username. and here you can set the password. When you click on this password policies, it shows the rule, what rule you have to follow. The password policies, so very simple, at least 8 characters including one number within the password. That is a password policy. This can be customized as per our requirement. That can be modified in the administration part. Now we'll set some password for this user. So this is how, just if you click on save and close, user would be ready. Now what we'll do is, along with the user creation, we'll assign the roles. We have a tab called as add roles. By using this add roles tab, we can assign the roles what we are planning to assign. These 2 roles we want to assign, right? So click on add role. So first we want to assign application implementation consultant role. Search for application implementation. Just type as application implementation. Here you can notice many roles. Application implementation administrator, application implementation consultant, application implementation manager. Primarily these are the 3 roles which you could see. The other roles all are like copied roles and modified roles. This and all will understand how to copy, how to create the new roles and all. The seeded you could see only 3. Application implementation administrator, application implementation consultant, application implementation manager. Now we can see application implementation administrator with the 2 definitions, the same role, but here code is different. This role is starting with the ASM, the other role is starting with ORA. There is small difference when we are going to work on the custom roles. We will discuss that point. For now, you can treat both are similar. There is no big difference. In 2 roles, we'll have the same privileges. You can select any role irrespective of role code. Okay, irrespective of role code, you can select any role. Both will have the same privileges. Now, which role we have to select? We have to select application implementation consultant role. Don't select administrator or manager. Those 2 roles will have a limited privileges. Only application implementation consultant role can have a full privileges to do any sort of configuration which is required to implement any applications. So select the role called as application implementation consultant. Here we have a 2 definitions. One code is starting with ASM, other one is starting with ORA. So it doesn't matter, anyone you can select. Both will have the same privileges, but there is one difference between these 2. But now you don't need to understand that. At the time of custom roles, we will discuss that point. It won't impact anywhere before we test that custom roles concept. Okay, anyone you can select. Both will have the same privileges. Or a simple point, let's make a note. So these are the 2 seeded roles Oracle is providing. If you want to edit the role, if you want to modify this role which is starting with ORA prefix, system won't allow. Which role code is not starting with ORA, that can be modified. That is the difference. Okay, both will have the same privileges. Which role code is starting with ORA, that cannot be modified. You cannot go and change privileges inside of this role. But this role can be modified as per our requirement. But any role you can copy and modify, those all will discuss in the separate session. Okay, for now, anyone you can select. I'm selecting the role called as application implementation consultant, irrespective of this role code, anyone you can select. I'm selecting first one. Now, if you notice the same role, okay, we selected which is starting with ASM as a code. The same role somebody copied in this instance. Okay, you can copy the role and you can modify as per your requirement. If you see some role which is already copied, don't use it. This is the one which Oracle is providing as a seeded that you can select. Click on the same role. Click on add role membership so that this role will be assigned to our user. Click on add role membership. The role application implementation consultant was added to the user. Say OK. Now we have to assign one more role called as IT security manager. The role name is IT security manager. The role IT security manager. the code starting with the FNT and other definition also you could see with the same name, IT Security Manager. Here role code is starting with ORA. Against this role, somebody created one copy role and they mentioned as a do not use. And against this role, which is starting with ORA, okay, they created copy. They copied this role and they create a new role and they mentioned as a do not use. Don't touch those. There might be some changes which they have done. So whatever Oracle is providing seeded, those you can select. These two are seeded. Two will have the same privileges. The role code which is starting with ORA, this you cannot edit. As this you have to use. This you can edit if required. But ideally these you don't need to edit. You can select any one of the role. The first one I am selecting. IT Security Manager, where the role code is FND. Select. Click on Add Role Membership. The IT Security Manager role was added to the user. Say OK. Done. Now we assign the two roles. Click on Save and Close. Add auto provision roles. This is a separate concept. Okay, now we cannot use that functionality. Certain setups you have to complete, then only we can test how that works. Once we are ready with the relevant setups, we will test that auto provision roles functionality also. Yeah, but now this is how you can provide the details for user. Okay, we given the last name and we given the username. We provided password and the confirm password also you can provide, and we assign the two roles and say save and close. Just click on save and close. User is created. Now you can find the same user from here. Search and find. Username is Intel. Click on search. So this is the user record. The display name, the username. We didn't provide any email ID for the user. And the user status is active and the user is not logged. And you could see actions here against the user record. Click on those actions. If you want to log this account, you can log so that this user cannot log into the instance. Okay, user account will be locked. The user is not allowed to log into the instance once it is locked. If you want to reset the password for the same user, yes, you can use the reset password option. If you want to delete this user, yes, that is possible. Okay. Now we'll go and reset the password. We'll see how to reset the password. Click on reset password. Select manually change the password. And enter the password, new password. Click on reset.
Lakshman,
Yeah.
a quick question. There is no end date like the traditional Oracle apps. If you go to the user screen, you can see an end date. You
Yeah.
don't have that here, is it?
No, that we have here. Click on the username. Okay, it could be display name or username. Click on it. The password expiry date is this. Okay.
But that would be just the date when the password has to be reset, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's not the actual end date.
No. The password expiry date, that is nothing but. Okay, you are talking about end date for the user.
You're right.
Okay. No, here only expiry date you can set. You cannot give some date as this is the end date for the user to access. No. This
Okay. Another question.
setup. This is a different.
Another right. Another question, Lakshman, is that you have a delete option there. Let's say a user has gone and created some transactions, right? And then we know that we have created by, last updated by fields in all those tables and everywhere. And let's say if I went and created few transactions and somebody went and deleted my user record, what would happen? I mean, the reference would be lost, isn't it?
The virtual delete takes place, but the reference will remain as it is against the records. Okay.
Okay.
That you cannot see from this page as a user, but wherever you use that user to perform any activities, there the name will remain.
So if I went and did let's say generated a report, would this record still show up in the backend?
Yeah, if you run the a record with the status called as deleted users, it will show. But normal, if you report with the active users or logged users, it won't display.
Okay. Thanks.
Right? Accordingly, you can verify.
Yeah. Okay.
Fine. So any other
Lakshman, sorry, question. Let's say like when we create a user in production environment, while at the time of migration to prod, and we have the users created, but we want the users to get activated only once the instance is up and everything is ready, right? So at that point of time, isn't there a way that we, like this active checkbox, like we have a control over it? Like we can, like, let's say we are going to say, okay, the production environment will be up after all the setups are done, because we don't want anyone to make any transition in the mid of some setups or something. So is there a way in Fusion that
generally we don't do that? See, we don't give the access to the business users before you keep that production ready. We never do that, keeping active and later making as inactive. Those practice we never follow. Okay. So once implement is done, once all the setups are ready, and after creating all the users, when you want to give the access to that user to create the transactions, you will be providing the credentials. They will log in and they'll do it. Okay. Here see we have edit option. So through edit option, if you want to uncheck, you can uncheck that. That is possible, but that is not the practice which you follow. Yeah.
Okay. And what is the difference? We also have a provision in to creating the users from HCM, right? So what's the difference between that and this? Is there any difference?
So there is time to discuss about it. In this stage, you cannot, we cannot take that point. But since you are asking, let me talk about it. The user which you create from HCM, Human Capital Management, that user you call as employee user. Okay. The user which you create from employee user.
Okay.
The user which you create from the security console, that you call as implementation user. Now the user which you are creating, that is implementation user. To create implementation user, simply you can provide the username and you can set the password and you can assign the roles. But if you want to create the user from HCM, you have to get ready with your primary ledger. You have to get ready with your legal entity. You have to get ready with your business unit. Okay. Once these all are ready, then only you can create the user from HCM. Okay, why we have to create the user from HCM? What is the difference between this user which you create from security console and HCM? That we'll discuss later. Now it will become a little bit confusion for the people who doesn't know these terms at all. Yeah, that is the reason I'm not touching that point. Yes, we have to understand that. We'll create that. Yeah. But now we are creating this implementation user. In the fresh instance, we cannot find all those setups, right? So we have to keep the setups ready. Once we are ready with those setups only, we can create the employee user. Why we have to create, where it will impact, if you don't create employee user, what you cannot do from this user. There are certain points we will discuss. Yep.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Fine. So now the user, whatever we created from security console, that user we call as a implementation user. So when you get access to fresh instance, whatever the user you are going to use for the implementation, that user we call as implementation user. Once you complete the required setups, you can create the employee user also. We'll see that going forward. So now any questions from anyone, please?
Lakshman, what is this user category?
So here by default it would be default only, because in case of this implementation users, that is by default security console, that category is default only. If you want to create the categories, you can create and you can select when you are creating the users should fall under the which category, just for classification purpose. Okay, so here it's a default. So the other one, this you cannot select here. Once you create the user as an employee user, this falls under worker. That is nothing but employee user.
Lakshman,
you can create some other categories and you can take it to that. So this system will take automatically when you create the employee user, or else this implementation user you can convert as employee user. We'll discuss those points because those really important, but I'm going to discuss, but not now. This may not be the right time if I'm going to talk about employee user, etc. Okay. So this is the point we have to understand how to create the implementation user. Any questions on this, please?
Regarding the deletion option, as we have available here in cloud, not in EBS. So do you recommend so we can recommend that they can delete
No.
multiple users when they want it? Is it a recommendable step we can
It's
do as an
not
IT person? Or
no business do that. First of all, Oracle should not give, but somehow they're given. But that we have to take the decision. Ideally, we should not delete the users. If you want to inactivate or log the account. That's how you can manage. Deletion is not at all recommended.
okay, thanks.
In EBS, we don't have the delete option, right? You can go and give the date. Yeah, so we can manage. Yeah. Fine. Just click on cancel to close this page. Any other questions, please?
So when you select the user category as default, would it be possible for you later on to switch that to worker, or is it set the way it is?
Worker, it will be if you select system won't accept. In case of worker, person number is required. This user need to be associated with the business unit and all. That will turn automatically based on the action which you do. That you cannot select here. Here you cannot associate all this to the user. Yeah, that's how it works.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Password date is non-editable.
Your voice is very low.
Can you hear me now?
Almost same. Okay, no issues. Let's see. Yeah, please go ahead.
Password expiration date is non-editable even if we click on edit button. So is there any way we can change that date?
Yeah. We can set here administration part. You can go and do the changes. Yeah. When we do the role customizations and all, whatever the options we have here, everything I'll be covering, so you will come to know. Here you can set the password expiry policy. There you can specify what is the policy. Accordingly, it will be defaulted. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah. Fine. So this is how you can create the user. Just click on done. We are ready with the user. Now we created a user called as Intel and we assigned these two roles. Now after assigning the roles to user, what we have to do is we have to run one job. We have to run one job called as LDAP job. Okay, we have to run one LDAP job. In EBS, whatever we call as request, we have a request and the request set, right? The same in the Fusion we call as job and job set. The name they changed. EBS request we call as job. EBS request set we call as job set. So when you say job, that is nothing but request. We have to submit one request in the Fusion application. The request is LDAP. What does it mean by LDAP? LDAP stands for lightweight, L stands for lightweight, D stands for directory, A stands for access, P stands for protocol. Lightweight directory access protocol. So this is one of the directory services in the Fusion applications. What it will do? When you assign any roles to the user, that assignments need to be updated in the LDAP directory services. LDAP directory services. When you assign any roles to the user, that information need to be updated in the LDAP directory services. Which information will be updated in the LDAP directory services? Accordingly, user can have access to the respective role related permissions. If you simply assign these two roles to this user, if this assignment is not yet updated in the LDAP directory services, this user cannot have access to these two role related privileges. That should be updated in the LDAP directory services, then only the user can have access to the two role related privileges. So that's how it works. What Oracle is doing is, the moment you assign the roles to the user, automatically Oracle will initiate the synchronization process. Okay. they'll run the synchronization process. That means what are the roles we are assigning to the user, the roles will sync with the LDAP directory services. That means that information will get updated in the LDAP directory services. Sometimes the update may take some time. Sometimes the update may take some time. Say you created a user, you assign some roles. Once you log into that user, what are the roles you assign to that user? You may not get access to the role related privileges. The reason could be the roles are not updated in the LDAP directory services. That means the roles are not synchronized with the LDAP directory services which are assigned to this user. So in those scenarios, you have to run this LDAP job through manual process. Always Oracle is recommending there is auto synchronization process, but whenever you assign the roles to user, it is recommended to run those job through manual process. Okay, don't schedule it. Don't schedule this LDAP job, manually submit it. So that's what Oracle is recommending. Now we assign these two roles to our user, and we have to submit the job called as LDAP, so that the two roles whatever we assign to Intel user can be updated in the LDAP directory services immediately. If you don't submit this LDAP job as a LDAP request, so it may take some time to update. Till the time this user cannot access to these two role related privileges. So this is the point we have to understand. At most of the time, once we assign these roles, automatically the roles will get synchronized. But you have to understand, once you assign the roles, you have to run this so that if auto synchronization is not happened because of this manual submission, the roles will get synchronized because of this manual job submission. Okay, this is the point we have to understand. Whenever you assign the roles, submit the job called as LDAP. Okay, LDAP is directory services. What are the users you are creating, what are the roles we are assigning to that users, everything need to be updated in the LDAP directory services. For that, Oracle has a auto synchronization process. It will keep triggering, but still Oracle is recommending us to run through manual process also. So before we go and do it, any questions from anyone, please?
This is the LDAP we need to also run for any other role that we're giving, like a AP, AP role, yes, anything like that. Any kind of roles, right?
Any kind of role. Any kind of role. Any other?
And when you say directory services here, that's not the employee directory, right? It's kind of a top on the back end.
Oh, this is a technical, this administration directory services. Yeah. Okay. Administration. We have a middleware in Fusion applications. In the Fusion middleware, we have LDAP directory services. So there, this information need to be updated. It's not related to employee directory. Yes. Any other questions?
So LAXMAN, does this sync with identity management services, or Oracle takes care of it?
Yes, exactly. So this will sync with the identity manager. See, once you create this user and once you update the roles, this will be updated with the IDM only. You can call it as IDM or OM. Here we discussed yesterday. Okay, it will be updated. Whatever you are creating and the roles what you are assigning, this will be updated here. So this information again need to be synced with the LDAP services. That's it. Yeah. Any questions?
And one more quick question. So I kind of come across some of the security features in my previous job. So we used to have multiple LDAP jobs, I believe. So do you think it changed recently? There is only one LDAP, the one we need to run for user and role synchronization?
You might, when you say you used multiple LDAP jobs, that may be the case. You might be integrated with some third-party applications and you want to sync this with other application. That might be the scenario, which I can guess. If you are using the Fusion application directly, you can run only one LDAP job that will sync roles or users role related assignments for entire instance level. Okay, this is not specific to for particular application. If you go and run the LDAP job, the synchronization process will take place for entire instance level. If I run the LDAP job, the same time, even if you submit, it system won't allow. Okay, it will block, because whatever the changes you do or I do or somebody will do, all changes system will consider and it will update. We don't need to run the separate LDAP jobs for different processes for any sort of role assignments. That roles may be this sort of individual roles where you don't need to assign anything, or the roles may be related to GL or APR, whatever it may be the roles, irrespective of role types or classification, we have to submit the LDAP job. You don't need to run multiple.
So that will sync the
submitted
user
multiple
and
roles,
the role
as
set.
mentioned.
Okay, that will sync the user information as well as the role information.
Exactly.
That's what you. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. See, this IDM, OAM, not only in the Fusion application, even you can use in EBS or any third party, any other applications also. Okay, this is not only for Fusion application, but Oracle is using in the IDM in the Fusion applications. These tools, these components can be used in any other applications also to manage the users and user security. Yep. Right. Now we'll go and submit this LDAP job. Go to our user, go to navigator, click on navigator, the bar icon. So here it is displaying all here these options. Here are expanded, tools are expanded. So when you come to this navigator window, here you could see show more option. If you click on this, it will expand everything. You can collapse it by clicking on show less. Okay, if you need the detailed view for all the tasks, here whatever you see, all we call as a task. So how you required, you can select accordingly. So by default, it would be like this. Now you can go to tools again. Go to tools section. Under tools, you can see one task called as scheduled processes. Click on scheduled processes. So this page we call as ESS job page. This page. Okay. Now we are in this page. This page we call as ESS job page. ESS stands for Enterprise Scheduler Service. If you compare this with the EBS, it is equal to SRS window. Okay, the Enterprise Scheduler Service is equal to Concurrent Manager in EBS. From the SRS window, you can submit any reports and you can submit any processes. If not report, you can submit the report set or say request set. In the same way, from the ESS job page, you can submit one or multiple jobs, or you can say job or job set. Now we are in the ESS job page. Here is the ESS job page. From here, you can submit the job or job set. Click on schedule new process. Okay, click on schedule new process. Here you can see the schedule. What we are going to process is job, or you can select job set, which are equal to EBS request and request set. We are going to submit only single job. Now here you can type for LDAP. LDAP, use tab will fetch the relevant job. Just use tab. So this is a job we have to use for the synchronization. The job name is retrieve latest LDAP changes. Say OK. So in the Fusion applications, whatever the job you are submitting, the job may be to process the data or job may be related to report. Whatever it may be, you can find the description. User can understand what the job will do. If that is a report, what data the report will fetch, the user can understand. If the job related to some process, how that process is going to do certain activity against the data, that information would be very much clear for the users who are going to submit the jobs. Here, what is the purpose of this job? This job will synchronize users and user related roles within the role. What are the grants we have with definition in LDAP? The LDAP directory services is all information will get synchronized, updated. Fine. So whatever the data we have in the IDM, whatever we created and assigned, everything will get updated in the IDM or say OIM. So that data will sync with the LDAP directory services. Just say OK. Okay, this is not specific to the user. This job is runs at instance level. Okay, click on submit. Say OK. Refresh. Okay, finally this job status will turn into succeeded. Now it is running, later it will be completed. Then finally the status will turn into succeeded like other jobs. Here you could see. Okay, it takes a couple of minutes time, but what you can do is after creating your user and after assigning the roles, you can submit this, and after submitting you may wait for 1 or 2 minutes, then you can proceed with your work. You don't need to wait here to see the status as a succeeded for the job which you are submitted. At the same time, when you are practicing, maybe from your end in the same instance, you may submit the LDAP job. The same time in the same instance, if other user is going to submit the job, same job, system will block it. So I submitted this job. Again, I want to submit, say for other user is going to submit the same job. Take this case as other user is submitting the same instance. In that case, the system will block it. Blocked. So why we are discussing this point? When we are practicing, if you see whatever the job you submitted, the status is blocked, you don't need to worry about it. You have to understand, already somebody submitted the job, system is running that job, that is the reason it is blocking. Okay. So in that case, the previous job, whatever somebody submitted, that job will take all your updates also, whatever the user you created, whatever the roles are assigned. Those updates also system will sync with the LDAP directory services. In that case, you don't need to worry about it. So you submit if it is running okay, or else if you see the status as blocked, don't need to worry about it. Think already synchronization process is initiated where someone else submitted the same job. That's it. So any job you submit, once that is completed, you can see the output files, log files also. Okay. So anything once that is done, here system will create output file. If it is applicable log files also, it will display, or else from here also you can see the log. We'll be working on it. Okay, we'll create some reports or processes at the time. We can see to verify the information. So any questions here, please?
What if the program ends up in error or warning?
Sorry?
What if the program ends up in error or warning?
So error program, error job you have to select. Let me check here any error job is there. Here we have some job which is errored out.
No, I mean LDAP. Have you seen this LDAP job completing?
No. That is very much standardized. You never face the issue with that as it will end with error.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
If any changes are there, it will take and it will update in the LDAP directories. No changes, it will just end with the succeeded status. You never face issue with the LDAP. If there is an issue with LDAP, only the option is you have to raise SR to Oracle. You cannot do anything. That's it. And one more point, sometimes even if it is going to end with error, say you submitted LDAP job and it ended with error, but still you don't need to worry about it. Reason is there is auto synchronization also Oracle enabled. So whatever you are submitting to update as soon as possible. If it is ending with error, no issues, wait for some time and go and check. As you are expecting, the user will be able to have access to the relevant roles since Oracle initiates the auto synchronization process in the background. So backend process, okay. So that's what we have to understand. Any other questions here, please? Any questions? Fine, no questions. So now we are ready with the user called as Intel. We'll log into the instance as Intel user and we'll verify the user got access to application implementation consultant as well as IT security manager. So it's an application implementation consultant. That user should get access to FSM, functional setup manager. If the user has access to IT security manager, that user should be able to have access to security console.
Lakshman?
Yeah.
Quick question. So I think I just missed it. So you basically the auto provisioning sync is not available. That's the reason we are running the LDAP job.
No.
Right?
That's wrong. Auto synchronization is available. That Oracle will be triggering automatically. But it may take some time to synchronize whatever you created. There could be some other activities in the queue to execute. Okay. It may take some time. That is the reason to see the impact immediately we are submitting. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah. You create your user, you assign these roles. After maybe 5 minutes, you can check. It will be working fine. The reason is auto synchronization takes place. You created user, you are verifying this. You are not finding this FSM access or security console, for example. In that case, you have to run the LDAP job. Instead of trying in all the ways, the best practice is what you can do is whenever you create a user and assign the roles, submit LDAP. Then that would be a very smooth process to have access to the user related role privileges. That's all. Yeah. Always auto synchronization system will initiate. Okay, the system will keep running the auto synchronization that Oracle will take care of. We don't need to do anything. Apart from that, we have to run this manual synchronization process also, which Oracle is recommending. Whatever Oracle is doing that auto synchronization, it may take some time to update what you created and what you assigned. Instead of waiting for that, you can submit so that again it will take these respective updates and it will run it so that you can see the impact immediately. That is only the point. Yeah.
Lakshman, I have a question.
Please.
So the auto synchronization job that it runs, periodically, like as and when you create roles, and that job and the job that we manually submitted, the LDAP job, are both the same?
No.
Or does it get submitted as a different, like in EBS, you have a request that it runs a bunch of jobs?
No, it's a different. It's the synchronization they will run with a different mechanism. The job,
Okay.
whatever we are running, they don't use it. See, if that is running, what we submit, that will get blocked.
Okay. Yeah, because we added these two roles and I was kind of curious, like it was running a job in a background. I'm not sure. I'm trying to go with the EBS because you can go to sysadmin and look at all the requests that have been submitted and you'd be able to track which is running and what's not.
Yeah.
But if you go from your own user, you can only see your jobs. Is it the same scenario here as well to see,
here,
if auto
correct. Here in the Fusion applications, there is no option by default where you can see what are the all jobs are running in the specific instance which are submitted by different user. No. Even from this user also, you can see only the jobs which are submitted by this user only. See here, submitted by. You cannot see other user related jobs. If you want to see, you can do the role customization. You can create one custom role. We have one privilege which will allow to see any other user related jobs also from our user.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that does ring a bell. Sometimes even if you want to look at the output in EBS for GL, the other user requests, you don't have an option or something like that. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Here we have to create the custom role, but directly there is no option Oracle is giving.
Okay, thank you.
That's fine. That's all. Okay. Any other questions, please? No questions. We'll go and check whether this user got access to FSM and security console or not. We'll verify. Done. Now just log out from this current user. Log into the instance as a Intel user. Okay, now first we'll check. We assign the application implementation consultant role to this user. So because of this role, this user should get access to FSM. FSM stands for Functional Setup Manager. We'll check our Intel user got access to FSM or not. How to verify? So click on username. Okay, just click on username. It will open the panel. Within the panel, if this user got access to application implementation consultant role, you can see one task called as setup and maintenance. Click on this. Now, if you click on this setup and maintenance task, it will navigate us to this page. This page only we call as FSM. From here, you can do any application related configuration. See here, we have a setup section. So you want to do the finance related setups. Select financials. You want to do the setups for which application? You want to do the setups for general ledger. Select general ledger. And here, say all tasks. So these are the different setups which you can perform for GL application. The same way, select payables. Say all tasks. So these are the payable related setups. Everything we call as a task here. Whatever we perform, we call as task. So you want to implement fixed assets. Select fixed assets. Select all tasks. You want to implement procurement application, so you can select procurement. Within the procurement, which application you want to implement, that you can select. Within the procurement, you want to implement the self-service procurement, which is equal to iProcurement in EBS. Relevant setups. Okay, or else you want to implement procurement contracts application, select procurement contracts, select all tasks. These are the setups. Okay, this is how just you can complete the setups from here. And different options we have going forward, we'll discuss everything more detail level. So if you want to verify the user got access to FSM or not, what we have to do is click on username. Here you can see the task called as if the application implementation consultant role is assigned to this user, then only you can see this setup and maintenance task here is available. Click on setup and maintenance. So you can find this page from where you can do any application related setups. That is the purpose of FSM. There are a few more points which you have to understand. We'll discuss anyway.
LAXMAN.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, it does say like a shared, and some places you see it as blank. What is that? Like, is it a?
So which one you are referring?
Like, if you look at on the left side, you see under the functional areas, under initial users, there is a thing called shared next to the arrow. Yeah, that one. What does that imply?
Okay. Okay, this setup is shared setup. This is not only for one application, it's for multiple applications. Certain setups will be across the applications, right?
Yes. Okay, got it.
That is the
Yep.
main point.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Fine, we assigned application implementation consultant. That is the reason this user is able to have access to FSM. We assigned the role called as IT security manager. Because of this IT security manager role, this user should get access to security console. We'll go to verify this user got access to security console or not. To check that, click on the navigator icon, and under tools, go to tools. Under tools, if you see security console task as available, then you can understand this user got access to IT security manager role. Yes, we assigned IT security manager role to this user. That is the reason we are able to see security console task for this user. You can click on security console. Go to users. So from this Intel user, you will be able to create the user. Just now we created a user from the different user, right? Intel user we created from different user. Now since our Intel user got access to IT security manager, from this user also you'll be able to create the users. Yeah, this is how you can verify. So any questions here, please? If no questions, we'll talk about FSM. Any questions?
Lakshman, scheduled processes will get by default without any role assignment. Scheduled processes that will get by default without any privileges or role assignment.
Okay. The schedule process you will get when you assign the role called as application implementation consultant. Because of these role we are getting the schedule process.
Oh,
Okay. If you don't assign this, or else you can assign one role called as employee. Even if you assign the role called as employee role to the user, you will get the schedule process page access, which is ESS job page.
yeah. Okay.
Since we are assigning the application implementation consultant, within the application implementation consultant, we have privilege called as schedule process page access. That is the reason we are getting this. Fine. So let's talk about FSM. Okay, FSM stands for Functional Setup Manager. FSM. I'll take you through a few points. If you have any questions after completing those points, we will discuss. Yeah, just give me a few minutes. I'll take you through a few points. For completing that, I'll take your questions. So when I talk about FSM, Functional Setup Manager, if you get access to fresh instance, the very first point is you may create your own user, or else whatever the user Oracle is providing, you may proceed with that. That is the first step. You can take the decision. You want to continue with the same user what Oracle is providing, or else by using that user, you may create your own user. If multiple team members are going to work on that instance, for every user, every member, you may create separate user. Maybe finance one user, SDM one user, HCM different user, you may create different users, or else everything you can manage from the single user. Once you're done with that, you may create a new user, or you may continue with the user what you get from Oracle. Once you take the decision on that, the next point is, okay, you have to select, you have to specify which applications you are going to implement as per your client requirement. Okay, when you do the implementation, there will be scope for the applications. Which applications you are going to implement, that you have to set ready in the instance. How you can set? What is the naming convention we use in case of FSM? So in the FSM, what are the applications we are going to use? We have a different naming convention. We'll see that. Let's take example of financials. Financials is one product family. The same way we have SCM, we have a procurement, and HCM, human capital management, and PPM, project portfolio management, CRM, customer relationship management. Okay, this is how there are many product families in the Fusion application, same as EBS. Now, these all we are calling as product families. But as per Fusion, especially as per FSM, Functional Setup Manager, these all we call as offerings. These all we call as offerings. Financials we call as offering. And SCM we call as offering. Same way, these all different product families we call as a offerings. So this each product family we are calling as offering. If financials, if you are calling as offering, what about the applications inside of financials? Say within the financials we have different applications. We have GL, General Ledger application. We have AP, accounts payables, AR, account receivables, CM, FA. Okay, let's take this example. So these are the different applications in the financials offering. Financials product family as per Fusion, FSM we call as offerings. So within the financial offering, we have these different applications. As per FSM, the applications we call as options. GL we call as option. Okay, AP we call as option. Each application as per FSM we call as option. So this is a terminology we have to understand. Offerings and options. Offering is nothing but specific product family. Option is nothing but particular application. Okay, this is the terminology we use in the FSM when we are dealing with these areas. So when you get access to a fresh instance, first you may create user, or you can use the same user what Oracle provides. The second step is which offerings and options you are going to implement for your client. Those we have to enable. What we have to do? We have to enable offerings and options. Okay, maybe your client requirement is they want to implement GL APR. So in that case, first we have to enable the financials offering. Within the financials offering, you have to enable these three options. whatever the offerings and options you are enabling, only those you will be able to implement. If those are not enabled in the fresh instance, you cannot use them. The very first step is we have to enable the offerings and options. So Oracle will allow you, say for example, your client taken the subscription for these 3 offerings, and within those offerings, respective options, they take the subscription from Oracle. So even if your client will take the subscription for these 3, many other offerings also will be available in the instance. Even if you don't take the subscription, those will be available. Ideally, we know we never implement since we don't have any subscription. If you implement, Oracle is not going to support since you don't have any subscription. So by default, other applications also would be available in instance, even if you don't take the subscription, but we should not use them. That is the point. Say for example, you are going to use, you taken the subscription for only financials. When you are working on the financial, there will be certain dependency setups from SCM side or HCM side. Those Oracle will allow us to do the Oracle will allow us to use those setups. That means you can do those setups, even those setups are related to SCM or HCM, to run your financials application flows. If any dependency setups need to be done from other applications, yes, Oracle will allow as the shared setups. Okay, that is a possible, but you should not implement those. If any dependency, you can complete those setups, Oracle will allow, but altogether you should not implement those applications to use as per your business requirement if you don't have a subscription. Okay, this is the point we have to understand. So each product family you call as offering, and each application you call as option. So most of the offerings and options would be available by default in all the instances, but as per your client implementation scope, for which offerings and options client take the subscription from Oracle, those only you have to enable so that you will be able to implement those applications. Okay, or say offerings and options. This is the point we have to understand. Any questions on this, please? No questions. After enabling the yeah.
Do we use these terms offering and optional in EBS as well, and it's the same?
No. EBS, those we call as applications only. That's all. There is no terminology we use as offerings and options.
Okay.
Yeah. Fine. Now the next step is, once you enable the offerings and options, which offerings and options you are going to implement, you have to create the implementation project. Create implementation project. So what is the purpose of implementation project here? It's very simple. When you talk about project lifecycle management, project lifecycle management, there will be typically 5 phases. Inception, then planning, then execution. Take here. Execution and controlling and monitoring also. Another one is closing. When you talk about project lifecycle management, these are the phases where organizations will execute the projects. Inception, they'll start the project, they do the planning, accordingly they'll execute the project. While they're executing, the project manager will control and monitor the project activities. Once everything is done, they'll close the project. These are the 5 phases in the project lifecycle management. But where we involve as a consultants, we involve always the execution. We involve in the execution management. So as a consultant, when we are working on the project, typically we'll take the requirement, right? This detail level we don't require to understand this implementation project. I am taking through this example. So we'll take the requirement gathering. We'll take the requirement from the client, and we'll design the solution. Okay, to design the solution, yep, let it be. We'll do the system configuration. We'll do the setups in the system. We'll present to the application to the client that you may do it through CRPs, conference room pilot, where we'll presenting the solution to the client, how that can be used as per their business requirement. Then we'll do the conversion. Okay, data conversion we'll do the production configuration, we'll give the training for the business users, and system will go live. There are many other activities also in between, but we don't need to focus on this to understand the simple point. I'm taking very high level. As a part of project lifecycle management, these are the various phases where organization will go through every project. And when it comes to execution management, here we'll involve as a consultants to work on the project. We'll do many activities. And here, within the execution management, we do the system setups. So what are the setups you have to do? How many setups you completed? Still, how many are pending? Which resource has to do which setups? This part you can maintain with the implementation project concept in the Fusion application. When you say create implementation project, don't compare with any project lifecycle management or project execution management. It is simple task which is related to setups. It is a completely setup maintenance, setup management. Okay, what are the setups you do within the application to manage all those setups? We create implementation project. When you create implementation project, which applications we are going to implement, those we will select. Say you are going to implement financials and SEM. Financials and SEM offerings will select into this project. Within the financials and SEM offering, you will have applications also. Those we are calling as options. That means the required offerings and options we will select into implementation project. And within this implementation project, you can do all the setups what you have to do. Just to manage the setup related information, or say configuration related information, we use implementation project. Don't compare this implementation project with any other real implementation projects which you do in the companies. And nothing to do with this implementation project costing or billing or some other activity. Only to manage the system related configuration, we can create the implementation project. This is the point we have to understand. Any questions on this, please? Okay. No questions. So very simple. To manage your setups, you can create the implementation project. Okay, implementation project again not mandatory. If you create, what are the benefits? If you don't create, what you cannot achieve, those also we'll discuss. Okay, ideally, we enable the offerings and options. Then against those offerings and options, we'll create the implementation project. How we create the implementation project? By selecting the offerings and options. Okay, here we'll create implementation project by selecting. We'll include offerings and options into project. Okay, we'll create implementation project. During the implementation project creation, we'll include offerings and options. So you included offering called as financials and options called as these. Now automatically system will create the task list. System creates task list. What does it mean by task list? First, what does it mean by task? Task is nothing but specific setup. Okay, specific setup. Each setup which you do in the system, that we call as a task. Or it may not be all the time setup. If you want to create any transaction also, whatever function we use, that we call as a task. In EBS, whatever you call as a function, that you can call it as privilege. In terms of FSM, that you can call as a task. Here task list is nothing but multiple tasks. So whatever the offerings and options you are selecting into implementation project, for all those offerings and option related, to complete all those offerings and option related setups, it will create the list of tasks. Say for example, you selected offering called as financials and you selected option called as only AP. Now system will create the task list for accounts payable only. That means to complete the accounts payable related configuration in the system environment, what setups you have to perform, all it will create as a task list. That means it will list out all payable related setups that we are calling as a task list. If you select financials and all options, To complete all these applications, what setups we have to perform, it will list out all those into project only. So this is how system will auto create the task list. Task list is nothing but list of setups. Each task refers to one setup. So that's how system would create. Now once system will create the task list, what we can do is, say for example, we selected financials and SCM, and within the financials and SCM, we selected relevant options. Now you can assign who has to implement. That means who has to complete finance setups. You can assign the resource to the offerings. You can assign team members offerings. So you may assign one resource to financials. Okay, you can do the resource assignment within the project, so that if anybody look at that project, they can understand who is taking the responsibility of doing the finance related configuration, SCM configuration, procurement configuration. This is how you can assign the team members to offering. Or say like you don't want to allocate complete finance setups to one resource. For each application you want to allocate to one resource. You want to give the GL setups to one resource, AP setups to another resource, ER setups to different resource. In that case, instead of assigning the team members to offering, you can assign the team members to options also, one or multiple options. Or you can assign GL and AP implementation to one resource. That means the team members you can assign to specific or multiple offerings or options. Or else it could be within the AP, say for example, you have 20 setups. For example, I'm taking within the AP, you have a 20 setups. You want to assign 10 setups to one resource, 10 setups to other resource. Yes, you can do that. So specific setups also you can assign to specific resource. That also you can call as a task list. You can assign specific task list. So you may assign 10 tasks to one resource, 10 tasks to other resource. The 10 tasks you can find as a separate task list also. Or else you want to assign single task to one resource. Okay, you want to assign only one task to one resource. The resource should take the responsibility of completing that setup. Yes, that is also good. So this is how once you create implementation project, system will create the task list for selected offerings and options. So you can assign the team members to the specific offering or option or task list or task. Once you assign, there will be information within the project level. If somebody is looking into that project, they can understand which resource are going to work on which offering or option to complete the setups. So when you are assigning, you can give the due dates also. If you are assigning the financials offering to one resource to complete, you may give the due date. These setups need to be completed by 10th of this month. If the resource is not able to complete, system will show the complete information for which resource, which tasks are overdue, or which resource are going to complete the task within this week, next week, or which resource are already completed, how many setups, still how many setups are pending to complete, how many setups are completed, how many setups are not started. Everything users will be able to update. The resource who are working on the project, they can update. What we have to do is, first we have to assign the team members to the respective offerings or options or task list. Then they'll start, once they start working on that relevant areas, they can update the status. Okay, you can update the status. Say you assign financials to one resource. The resource, by default, the finance offering status would be like not started. The resource started working on the financials. So finance level, the resource can update the status as in progress. That means by looking at the project, we can understand so-and-so resource started working on the financials, the status is in progress. Say the resource completed AP setups. For AP, the resource can go and update the status as setups are completed. Now, if you look at the financials, system will display the overall it is in progress, but AP setups are completed. Which other application setups are started, which are not yet started, what is the overall progress of the financials, you can understand. In the same way, you will be able to track the overall progress of the project also, if you apply for other offerings. So users will update the status as they are going to, whether they are started working on the setups or not at starting, everything they'll update. Then once they start doing the setups, based on the updates which they do, you will be able to track. You can track the progress of project. When you say progress of project, it is nothing but it is related to setups only. That means you can track the progress of the setups. Your project is nothing but to manage the setups only. Or say you created implementation project with these 3 offerings under different options. Yeah, please.
What about the dependencies? Like, because there's some, if you do not have the calendar, if you do not have the chart of accounts or anything set up, you probably won't be able to do the AP setups, right? So I'm just giving hypothetical examples, right? So what about the dependencies?
What dependency setups you are referring?
I mean, like, for financials, the GL has to be set up first before you can start the AP setup.
Yeah, that falls under AP only, right? That falls under finance only, right?
Yeah, it does. But I'm just thinking, like, if you give to different users to do the setups while they're waiting for the GL to be done, for them to start the AP setup.
Yeah. See, when we are doing the setups, anyway, we'll follow the sequence. Okay, which applications first, which applications next. That sequence will follow. Okay, just to understand, I am just giving the points as that we have to update.
Okay, all right.
So if you want to implement not only accounts payables or receivables, even if you want to implement, say your client is going to implement only SCM, but still you have to, from GL side, you have to complete the primary ledger definition. Otherwise, you cannot use. That sequence remain as it is. Okay. So that setups need to be completed as a prerequisite. Then on you can deal with the other applications.
Lakshman, so does it actually break it down to the point of all the dependent objects, because it goes to your options and then the tasks, right? So if you're looking at a GL option, does it bundle up all the dependent tasks that have to happen prior to running these?
No, across the options, dependency system won't show, but within the option, say for example, to do one setup in the payables. In that setup, what is the prerequisite setup system? Going to do the payable setups, it won't show. You have to complete the GL setup. We have to understand as a consultant.
Okay, thank you.
In the option, it shows the dependency. We'll go and see that once we take you through all
oh, sure. Another question is, does it also allow you to track how much time is being spent on it, or just a task level progress?
That minute
no, right?
level,
No.
We cannot do that. Okay.
Okay.
What are the assignments we are doing? Status is updating just for information. There is no control in the system. Say, for example, the financials I will assign to Mr. X, but who has access to FSM, they can go and do that setups. There is no control. Mr. Y can go and do the setups. System won't restrict. This is just information only. Whatever we are assigning just for information. Everybody will be knowing their responsibility. So if I am responsible to implement, since I got access to SCM setups. Anyway, if I do the setups, it will be tracked. Okay, which user did this setup? That would be there, right? So this is just for information only. There is no control. That's very important point. Just for information.
Thank you.
Yeah, fine, thanks. That's how you can track. If you go and look at the project level, implementation project level, it will show overall the progress. So if you are going to have these 3 offerings in your project, it shows across all these 3 offerings, total how many tasks we have, how many tasks are in progress, how many tasks are completed, how many resources are going to work, which resource is going to work on which setups, resource wise, how much percentage of setups are completed, or what is the progress, or overall finance level, SCM level, procurement level, what is the progress, everything will be able to track. That's how this would be useful, but no control. Who has access to FSM, any resource, any user will be able to do the setups, even that offering or option are not assigned to that user. Okay, just for information only. And the implementation, and one more point is, so with the help of FSM, you can create the configuration packages. Okay, you can create configuration packages. With the help of configuration packages, you can move the setups from one to other instance, only setup data, not transactional data. So being a functional consultant, it's a very simple task. With the help of configuration package, what are the setups you completed, those you can extract into file that you can load into targeted instance. That's how you can move the setups. This activity you can do if you have a project created. Without creating the project also, you can do all the application related setups. Project creation is not mandatory in the Fusion. Without creating the project also, you can do any application related setups, but you have to enable the offerings and options. That you have to do for sure. Once you enable the offerings and options, if you create the project, you can do all these assignments. You can update the status. You can track the progress of the project. If you don't create the project, once you enable the offerings and options directly, you can go and do the setups. When you are doing the setups, you cannot assign the resource to offerings or options. You cannot update the status. Simply, you can do the setups. So you enabled offerings and options. You didn't create the project, so that you cannot do all those things. You cannot assign. You cannot update the status. You cannot progress, and even you cannot create the configuration package also. If you have implementation project, you will be able to do all this. You may not do all this, but if you have implementation project, system will allow you to create the configuration package. You don't have implementation project, you completed all the setups. If you want to move the setup from one to other instance, you cannot do. At least after completing the implementation project, you have to create the, after completing all the setups, you have to create the implementation project. Then you will be able to move the setups from one to other instance. So very simple point is, with configuration package, you can move the setups from one to other instance. If you want to create the configuration package, implementation project is mandatory. Without implementation project, you can do the setups, but you cannot move the setup from one to other instance. Any questions on this point, please?
So, Lakshman, moving configurations, right? So is that it looks like a project level. So if I have multiple projects, can I move all at a time or?
All at a time, no. Each project wise, you can do that.
I see. Okay, got it. Thanks.
But generally what we do is, we create project country specific. Generally, you can create multiple projects. If you want to create for finance one project, SCM one project, procurement one project, yes, you can create. The project will give you the navigation path to go and complete the setup. That's all, nothing else. So you can create multiple projects. Even if you are going to do the implementation for one country, for each offering you can create the separate project. Even for each option also you can create the project, but generally there is no need of creating like that. If you are doing the implementation of 4 countries, for each country we'll create the separate project, so that country wise you can manage the setups. Ideally we'll have a separate teams country specific. So, or else for multiple countries also you can create single project. From one project you can complete the setups for multiple countries. If you are going to use one project for multiple country, there will be small complexity that I'll talk on that when you are doing the really setups in the system. But general practice is, for every country we'll create the separate setup, separate project. That's how you can manage. Other option is without creating project also you can do the setups. I'll take you through all these options. What we are discussing, we'll see in the system also, so that you can understand, not just discussion. So from where you can create the setups without project, with project, how we can create. Other than these 2 options, what are the other options we have, in which scenario works, everything we'll discuss.
So one quick question. So by the end of the day, if you create country specific projects, you can remove the names, right? Once you go live, you don't want to see those names.
Yeah, project name anytime you can change, but that won't impact anywhere, anything. The setups will get stored in the relevant tables. The project is just user interface which you are creating for our accessibility and identification purpose and status tracking purpose. You can do all the setups and you can delete your project. Your setups will be same. Yeah, it won't impact anything. Yeah. Any other questions here, please?
Lakshman, this is Ramesh. So after creating this configuration packages, right? So if I want to modify that task list or offering and options, so can I do it and again I have to recreate a new configuration package, or existing I can update it? How that works?
See, when you create the configuration package against one project, by that time, by using that offerings or options, what are the setups you completed, those system will take into configuration package. Again, if you go and do some changes, if you want to take those updates also, you have to create the new configuration package. That's all.
Okay. Okay. So existing will be void. We have to recreate a new one.
Yeah, you
Okay.
have to create it. That's it. The previous one, whatever you created, that file you have to ignore. You have to create the new
Ignore it.
configuration package file that you can take into the target instance to move the setups. That's all.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. And say you created one configuration package and you move the setups. Again, in the test instance or from which instance you take the configuration package, you may do the additional setups. The incremental setups also you can move by creating the latest configuration package. One more you can create that you can load so that the incremental setups also you can load into targeted instance.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions, please?
And this configuration package needs to be created.
Voice is very low. I'm sorry.
This configuration package needs to be created at offering level, or even we can create it at option level.
Project level.
Okay.
Project. If you have a offering as a separate project, yes. Project offering level also you can create, but generally we don't create for each offering separate project. Say you are implementing 3 or 4 offerings for a client. So by including the 3 or 4 offerings, we'll create the implementation project. So that's how we deal with this project creation. Any other questions?
Lakshman?
Yeah.
So let's say in wave 1 we implemented financials and supply chain.
Okay.
And wave 2 we are implementing HCM.
Okay.
Then we create a new project in wave 2, right?
Not
We
required.
don't touch the.
You can include that new offerings into project. Okay.
But when you're migrating, it sounds like it's safe bet to create a new project instead of migrating the existing. You see what I mean too?
See, you take in the case as already we implemented these 2. Okay, now you are creating one more HCM. So to do the HCM implementation, you have to do the setups. This HCM you can include into existing project and you can do the setups, or else you can create separate implementation project for HCM as per the current scenario, whatever you given. Create separate HCM implementation project, do all the setups. Only these setups you can move to other instance. If you want.
Okay.
You can do any option.
Either way. Okay.
Yeah, correct. Any other questions, please? Right, no questions. So we'll just go through all these points maybe in tomorrow's session. It's already 9:30. We can wind up for today. Any questions from anyone, please? If no questions, we can wind up. We'll connect tomorrow same time. Any questions, please?
Lakshman, this is Hari. I have a quick question regarding the scheduling jobs.
Okay.
In EBS, we used to have sysadmin who takes care of all the jobs which are scheduled and got in error, or workflow. If there is any error, he can see all the notifications. So here you said we need to customize the role to see all users submitted jobs, right? So there is no standard user or anything like you can...
No. There is no standard user or there is no standard job. We can create the custom role. Within that, you can add that privilege so that you will be able to see those. I'll take you through in the class also. Yeah. Sure. That I'll just include that point. But separate user you don't have. There is no something like seeded user from which user you can see isn't all no. By default, there is no direct provision for any user. Yeah. Any other questions?
Sorry, I think. So in continuation of the question, is there any provision like segregation of duties in it, or does it not prevent you from adding any privileges? If you create a user, can you put everything in there, or is there some kind of restriction that would prevent you doing so?
So preventing in the sense anything you can provision to the user with the roles. Whatever you are including in the role that you can assign to the user, that user can connect to the functionality. Okay, you cannot set restrictions. If you want to set restrictions, the point is don't include any of that relevant privilege to the role which you are giving to the user. That's all.
Oh, okay. So they're still manual, just like hardware. I was kind of curious because it evolved. I was thinking they kind of, embedded that into that set, payables, can't have certain purchasing responsible whatnot, right? So, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions? Fine, no questions. Then that's all for today. We'll connect tomorrow same time, and we'll just see how to enable the offerings options, how to create the project. We'll try to complete all this in tomorrow's session. Time permits, we'll proceed with other concept also. So if you still any questions, please. If no questions, we'll wind up.
So we supposed to get the access today, all of us, or?
Yeah, already who subscribed this course, already we give access. If still you done with that payment process, not yet received, means please contact the team so that you get access immediately.
Okay, I'll reach out to Satish. Thank you.
Yeah, fine. Thanks. Okay. That's all for today. We'll connect tomorrow same time.